we don't have a traditional means of retirement like a lot of like my parents, for example. They have a more traditional means than I do. I have to go create my retirement, which is why business ownership, part of the reason why it's so important to me is, well, I need capital at work. I need, recurring revenue to come in so that if for whatever reason, let's just say I have to retire early, I get injured or something and I physically can't work.
Yeah.
How am I going to take care of my family?
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Hustle on Purpose podcast. I'm GT Eichert. We have a very special guest with us today, Kris Kohlstedt. Kris, how are you doing, man?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
We've talked quite a few times over the years, just due to the nature of being in real estate in Central Arkansas. And I always like talking to you because it's I get your perspective on some real estate stuff, but also talk about all kinds of other stuff as well. So we'll just launch into it. Tell everyone just a little bit about you and where you're from and what you do.
Gotcha. So my name's Kris Kohlstedt from Central Arkansas. I moved to Central Arkansas around 2000. My dad's job, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
His dad's job brought us here. Played sports my whole life, soccer, baseball, skateboarding. Gosh, that was so much fun. And I actually ended up, I had a dilemma. When I was 12, I needed to be in two different places at the same time. One for soccer, one for baseball. And I had to choose, okay, which one are you going to do? So I chose baseball. So I continued baseball through high school, played in college, got a degree in math and economics.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Came out of college like, what am I going to do with my life? And actually ended up working at insurance for a couple of months.
Okay.
The day I got my insurance license, I was celebrating with my family. And I had a family friend who I grew up playing with his son in baseball. He worked at a company called ABC Financial in Sherwood.
Yep.
And so he said, hey, and you're just in conversation, right? I'm just like, hey man, what books are you reading? Like, this is what I'm up to, would love to chat with you. And he's like, we could use a guy like you at ABC. And I'm like, what is that? So
I just got this job.
Yeah, I just got my exam.
Right.
And so 3 short months later, I was an employee at ABC.
Okay.
Now, in the meantime, I had been reading books. One of those books was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Actually, it was a requirement before I could even... This gentleman who employed me at the insurance agency, he said that you have to read this book before I'll take any conversation further. And I was like, done, I'll read it today. And I read it that night.
Wow. Yeah.
Like I went to Barnes & Noble right after. So I'm like, I need to be in real estate. So
it's hard to read that book and not be like, oh, I got to get some real estate.
And also too, like just to uncap like the value of being a business owner, and the value of not trading your time for money was something that was really important to me. And I didn't really understand that at the time, but I knew that I need to set out on a journey in that way. So actually I hit up Cody and I'm like, hey man, you're the only friend I know that's reading books like I am. Would you want to go to this real estate conference thing with me? And he's like, yeah. So we go and we buy into the Rich Dad education and we started our company in October of 2016.
And that's Cody Dover.
Yep.
Who's been on the podcast before. Go check out Cody's episode.
Yeah. So Cody and I started a company and we bought our first houses in January of 2017.
And that's with credit. That's kind of the Robert Kiyosaki, like credit card way of doing it.
Well, we got a credit card for the education because it was expensive and we didn't have the money. We were talking with like a realtor. We had 2 houses that were on like next door to each other, and we went to this thing locally called Deal or No Deal at the local RIA. And it's like a Thursday night. It's like a casual thing, and at the end of it, the guy's like, "Hey, does anybody have a deal that they want to go over? We'll talk about if it's a good deal." And so Cody spoke up and was like, "Yeah, we got one. Like we think, we don't know. We're talking to the negotiation and stuff." And this couple approached us afterwards and said, hey, we'd like to fund your deal. We were like, say what? You mean we can get into this for $0 out of it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But that was the whole thing that had been preached to us, was you could do this for $0, but we didn't know how to do that.
Right.
And this is a strategy to do that. So
it sounds hoaxy when you hear people say it, or like some guru's pitching it to you in an online ad, like you can get in real estate for $0. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
After I buy your course.
Of course.
Right.
And there's merit to it. What you pay for is the knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't know something, what we do is we go to what we do know, and then we use that as a background of knowledge to assess the situation, right? So if you don't know anything about creative financing or leveraging other people's money, you're immediately going to go to scam,
right?
Because my parents told me it was a scam. If someone says something's too good to be true, etc. So we had to break that mold. And in fact, I think there's only one house we ever bought that we put our own money in.
Yeah. Wow.
That was very interesting. So we got started. So Cody and I are now on a real estate adventure. 2017, we buy 5 houses in 5 months, and we're like, dude, we got this thing.
We're crushing it, right?
Like,
we know everything.
We know everything.
Yeah.
And so then we're like, well, we need to find more of other people's money.
That OPM.
Yep. So we decided that because of my job at the time, I was traveling like 50 weeks out of the year.
And what were you doing you're still at ABC at this point?
Yeah. So ABC, at the time, their intro role was called an on-site implementation manager. So the objective there is they sold data management software and payment processing to gyms. So my job was to go to a gym that was implementing the software and train all of the staff, from front desk employee, personal trainer, manager, owner, about how that system works and all the ins and outs, like payment processing stuff. And so I was doing that, but I was traveling all over the place. And so I had, the highest status with the airlines, highest status with the hotel, highest status with the car rental place. And so I'm like, Cody, I have a ton of miles. Like, let's go somewhere. And so we decided to go to LA and go to this entrepreneur conference.
Well, which one?
It's called Secret Knock.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it's still around, but there's the community of people that went to that event are pretty tight knit. So there's probably 30 or so people, and we saw that as a trend. We were like, wait a minute, these people tend to hang out together. Maybe we should come out here more often and visit with them. So we started conversation about, we were very much on our egos. We're like, hey, we're the next big thing coming up. Like, you gotta help us out, especially if you got money,
Right. Yeah. Especially if you have money.
In Arkansas, like, these people are in California, right? So we do that, and then we kind of veer off the path. Well, it was like we couldn't make something work with other people's money, and the bank turned us down on our 6th deal because our debt to income.
Yeah.
So we're like, shoot, I don't know how to fund these otherwise, so we need to maybe do something else. So I'm traveling all the time, so I'm like, I'm going to do like network marketing. So I do network marketing, and it was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah. I ended up getting into like a scammy product that didn't actually work, and it was just like the hype being sold and blah, blah. It was a whole nightmare thing.
Yeah.
But I had to go through that to realize
right.
We had it all along in front of us. We just needed to persist, which was a single family real estate. And we were missing the marketing aspect of it at the time. So 2 years down the road now, it's August 2019. Cody and I are actually working for a gentleman who we thought was the best authority in the local market. We were working with him, calling his leads, and he had the marketing down. So we thought, okay, that was our missing piece. Let's go do acquisitions for this guy.
Yeah.
So at this time, I moved into a sales role with ABC, and I was making calls to homeowners on the side, and I was making as much as I was making at ABC
right.
in a month. I'm like, what if I just gave full time to this? So
was that scary?
Dude, it was a nightmare.
Leaving your salary position and yeah.
So I actually have a coach, and I started that in January of 2018.
Is this Coach K?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coach K. So Coach K and I started 2018. And if it wasn't for her pushing me into like going for what I want, I would not have been promoted several times within ABC. I would not have, taken that leap of faith to be a full-time entrepreneur. I felt very scared. The fear was, I didn't sleep. I was having a hard time sleeping. So she had, as part of my homework with her, was to write a termination email to my supervisor. Not to send it, just to write one.
Yeah. Think it through.
Yep.
It's kind of like a write your own obituary kind of like thought experiment or exercise, I guess.
And that wore me out. It took me like 2 weeks before I could send him. So I ended up sending it. I didn't tell my parents. First, and also too, my parents initially thought I was crazy for doing real estate.
Right.
And the coaching too. So go full time with it, with Cody and another partner to fund the operation.
So hold on. So you didn't tell your parents because you were worried they were going to talk you out of it. You didn't want to go, hey, I'm going to quit my job, because your parents have your best interest at heart, and you're worried they're going to be like, don't do that.
Yes. Very conservative. I was very much so in fear of, what are they going to think and say and try to talk me out of it or make guilt trip me or something. And I just like passively was just chatting. I was like, yeah, since I left ABC. And they're like, what? Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you guys. Conveniently forgot that. I just left that one out.
Yeah.
And so, so they ended up saying, okay, we kind of anticipated that this may happen at some point. And it was not good. I will say, for the first 6 months, COVID happened.
Ooh.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm barely making enough to scrape, just to afford like the rent I was paying. It was like I rented a room from a guy.
Yeah.
I was paying like $450 a month, and I had negotiated with him that there were several other people living there. I said, hey, if I'm going to live here, I want the office too.
Nice.
I want my room in the office so I can work.
Right.
And that became my office. And actually, Cody ended up moving into that house.
Oh, wow.
Probably like 6 months after.
And that was like the home base. Like y'all had an office. And
that was the entrepreneur house.
Yeah. You got a picture of it hung up on your wall, like the Amazon garage or like the Apple garage. Like, yeah. Like, hey man, I got to swing by and grab a picture of
seriously
where it all began.
Yeah. Like that was good.
I mean, it's one of those things where, and I don't know if you've gone far enough from it yet, but I think back on some of those things in my life, and it's like, man, I was so stressed out and so scared and working my tail off in those days. But I don't know if it's just nostalgia or what, but like when you look back on those times and you're living with some buddies and don't know where your next like meal's coming from in some instances. But you look back on it, it's like, man, those were the days.
Yeah. Well, what I had to learn in that was it's okay, Mm-hmm. And what I had to also learn was, okay, if it's okay, then I can change the story I'm telling myself about it. So instead of poor me, this is happening to me. No, this is happening for me, and I'm building something. I'm on a trajectory to create, rather than I'm in a poverty-stricken situation and there's no way out. I'd always had the vision. It was just a matter of time. In fact, while I was working at ABC, one of my visions was to have my own office space, to be in a different house that wasn't with my parents, and to be able to create freely. And Cody and I put up a full wall that was it was like a shower board, but you could do dry erase on it.
Yeah.
And so that was our big whiteboard that we would just sit there and talk for 6 hours straight and just chop up ideas. Yeah.
Hard to do that with a full-time job.
Yeah. So it's like, hey man, come over at like 6 and then we're going to stay up till midnight and then like later.
Yeah. Right.
This episode of Hustle on Purpose is brought to you by Arkansas Real Estate Buyers. If you have a problematic piece of real estate, we would love to help you. Go to the description, click on the link, schedule a free consultation with me personally, and we'll get you set up. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, it's kind of like if you want to take the island, you got to burn the boats type of thing. I know the reason I was asking you how hard it was to leave your full-time job is because I know for me, it was really tough. I mean, I think the owner of the company I used to work for gave me a gift by kind of being the final push to leave, because I'm not sure I would have done it on my own.
Yeah.
Especially because at the time I left the company I used to work for, I was married with kids, and like it's a new kind of level of responsibility, and really feeling that weight of like, when it was just me, it's like I could live in my truck if I have to.
Care, yeah.
Like if I'm pushing towards something, I feel like I'm, following my vision or whatever, like I can live in my truck for a month, whatever. Once you have a wife and kids, it just becomes like, my wife's going to be significantly less okay with living in the truck,
Right.
But you kind of, I don't think you get anywhere of substance without getting to that point of like, okay, like the boats have been burned. There's no way back. We just have to go through,
Yeah. I think too that there's a dynamic that I have dealt with in that moment, which is the fear versus abundance, or scarcity versus abundance in those times where, the fear can have you revert back or pull you back into that. And, kind of like maybe I can go back or something,
Right. Things aren't going well right now, so
Yeah.
I need to abandon ship. And
if I didn't burn the bridges, I would have reverted back.
Yeah.
Almost certainly. Because in the
Yeah.
first 6 months, we weren't doing too much.
Yeah.
I was very trying. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right.
Right.
Is this okay? And I was like, but I don't have a plan B, so I'm just going to have to
Just got to
just
do
work
it.
it.
Yeah. Just got to
Do the
figure
work,
it out.
you know?
Well, and
Yeah.
I've had this discussion with a few other entrepreneurs on here. One of the things that I struggled with was when you have that salary job, like you have all the security of that, you're getting your paycheck every week, 2 weeks, whatever. But B, you also, if you have a good manager, owner, leader, you get your pats on the back, or you have your KPIs, and you have goals set for you by your leadership. And, you get your annual raise, or you get your quarterly bonus, or, there's all these like milestones that you can hit, and like very, trackable. It's all very, you can tell if you're doing a good job, or like if your boss is happy, so to speak.
Right.
Once you take that plunge and you're no longer in that system, it becomes this weird mental game with yourself where it's like, I have to make my own KPIs. Like I have to hold myself accountable. And a lot of times it's what I've struggled with is I can set my goals, and I can have KPIs for myself that I'm following, or like, I did my task for today, and I know that leads to quarterly success or annual success, whatever. But even if that fear still sneaks in, or you have a month where your expenses have exceeded your income, or you have 6 months that do that, and that fear sets in of like, well, I'm flawed. Maybe the KPIs I came up with are completely jacked and like have been leading me to demise instead of to success.
Right.
And it's this really, like, you can get in this really dark place really quickly.
Yeah, I have struggled with that myself. I think when you're the backstop for everything, the part that's often missing is who holds you accountable. And what I've learned is, like, through Coach K is, well, anytime I show up to a session, I'm immediately humbled. Like, I show up and I'm like, I better be grateful and humble here. Even if I am flying high and things are going well, it's really good to have, whether it be a mastermind of people or a mentor or a coach, in my case, to check you, to say, yeah, you're high on the hog, but let's ground you here. Like, let's make sure that you are, although you have had this success or maybe not. Maybe it's not success in this moment.
Right.
So just as a way of like grounding you from being in your ego in a positive way of saying like, I'm good, I got this.
Right.
There's also the ego of, I don't have this.
Yeah.
You know, and to have someone to pull you out of both sides of that is extremely important. I think oftentimes it goes unsaid about the negative effects of the ego, like when you're in a fear mindset.
Yeah.
So that has been instrumental for me. Now, when I go to a session with Karen, let's say, she's not saying, all right, let's break down your business. Let's go through everything one for one. And then let's see, it's, why are you feeling this way? Now let's assess that. Once we heal and feel that, the accountability, you're going to have the natural drive and desire to take on that and to fulfill that. And that she's shown me time and time again it works that way.
Yeah.
And so
it's less about the nuts and bolts of like the business that we as business owners get focused on, because we have to. Like you have to get in the weeds of making sure everything's functioning, but it can just bog you down.
And it's a lot. I mean, okay, business ownership is a lot. Okay.
It's just a lot.
And if you don't have a team, or if you have a small team, it's still a lot. Like you're always wearing a lot of hats. But that's even more of a reason to be freed up in your own energy as a human, and understand that it's okay to be in that and to have a lot of work, and that it's not a bad thing that you have to deal with that.
So when you mean freed up in your own energy, define that for me a little bit.
Yeah. So like a contrasting point of that would be to be in fear.
Okay.
Where you're like, I'm feeling stuck. I don't know which way to go.
Okay.
I may have a blurred vision. The freeing up of that is addressing, well, what is stopping you from actually pursuing that? Is it the fear of what other people think? Is it the fear of failure? And how do those fundamental fears show up in your everyday life? Oh, well, that's my wife who's been telling me like, I got to get my stuff together because it's not working right now. Okay, that's going to generate a little fear. So now I'm in fear of what she thinks, and I may alter how I behave in a negative way. I may sabotage myself.
Yeah.
So how do you free yourself of that to have a communicative situation where you maybe talk to the wife and say, hey, let's get on the same page here in a positive way. That way I'm not carrying this fear with me of our situation right now.
And carrying that fear with me impacts all of my decisions throughout my day and
all areas of your life.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So it's like that. There's a saying that's like, how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you feel, and it's even the minuscule things, right? Like if there's one thing that's taking you out, it is likely to some degree or another affecting you in every other area. And it's worth taking a look.
Yeah.
Even if it's difficult.
Yeah.
I have a little PTSD when I hear the how you do anything is how you do everything. The owner of the company I used to work for is big on that. And I have mixed feelings on it because on one side I'm like, that is so true, and there's so many examples of just like, if you walk by a piece of trash at a renovation you have going on and you don't pick it up, and what's the butterfly effect of that? Like everyone that's working there sees you not pick it up, and like they're like, that can just lead to them thinking it's okay to not pick up trash. But when it comes to how you do anything is how you do everything, it's like it hurts me a little bit because I'm like, I told Aaron this the other day. It's like you don't want to half-ass anything, but you get to a point where you only have so much ass to give, right?
Yep.
And it's like you get to a point where you have so much going on that it's impossible to be everything to everybody all the time and to do it all extremely well. So while I'm on board with the how you do anything is how you do everything, I'm also like, there's a part of me that doesn't want to buy into it because I feel like I'm at a place where like I'm trying to be an excellent husband. I'm trying to be an excellent father. I'm trying to be an excellent business leader. I'm trying to be an excellent friend, an excellent son. I have all of these areas in my life that I'm trying to be excellent at.
And it's really hard when there just seems to be more and more things I'm trying to do. So I'm at a really weird place with the saying of how you do anything is how you do everything. Because I think it's true, but I'm also like, part of me hopes that it's not necessarily true. Yeah. Because like, if you go look in my car right now, like it's an absolute mess because like being an excellent car owner is so low on my totem pole of like my hierarchy of needs, so to speak. So I'm torn on that one right now.
Yeah. Well, the approach that I've taken with it, this is a new approach for me that I've been learning, is that we only have so much ask to give, right? And at different times, there's different asks demanded. So it may in this moment be, I need to be a better husband than car owner.
Yeah.
But in another situation, you have communicated in a way to your wife where she feels like, wow, GT's on it. He's got it. And then you're like, car, let me deal with that real quick. You know?
Yeah.
And so, but I think the power comes from the communication and the boundary setting to say, hey, I want to be an excellent son in this moment. I have other commitments that I have made or something that's tugging me. Let's have a conversation about it. And this is something that was not taught to me by my parents, by the way. Sorry, Mom, Dad, if you're watching. But, you know, that's okay. But I'm on this journey to learn these things so that I can be all of those things and it be okay. And, you know, that I could delegate things if I need so that I can remain excellent in all of the areas.
Right. It's like a Swiss Army knife. Like you want to be a Swiss Army knife that's capable of being an effective tool in a wide variety of situations. Yeah. But like a Swiss Army knife, if you try to have every tool open at once, it's useless, not gonna work. Yeah. Right? Like you can only really be effective with one thing at a time. So I think I think that's a really good perspective. It's as long as you're communicating it well to the people that need you in the moment of, hey, I want to be this, but I've got to be this right now, but I'll come back to being this, I promise.
Yeah. One of the things that has stood out to me recently and something I've been developing is my own ambition for my life. So that's kind of that's the playbook, so to speak, that I could hand out to anybody and everybody and say, here it is. So you can see how you may fit into this vision and also to say where I need to set a boundary with you because I can't give up on my dreams to give you this energy in the moment because fulfilling my dreams will actually bring you more joy in the long run. It just looks like a boundary right here in this moment.
Yeah.
But if you don't speak that, they're going based on their knowledge of the situation.
Right.
And that's based on what they know. So they may be in their head saying, oh, GT doesn't like me.
He's just a jerk.
I'm bad, you know. And so that produces bad moods for them, which will in turn affect you over time.
So you're coming up with the clearer you can get on your vision, the clearer you can communicate that to the people in your life, the less open for interpretation it is. It's just like, oh, well, Kris isn't being a jerk.
Yes.
He's just doing his thing. And like in the moment, that just makes him look like a jerk to me right now.
Because the feeling is, well, why am I not involved? Oftentimes.
Right.
From the third party to you is like, well, I want to be a part of that. And since they're not getting that energy, like I'll give you a really good example is my relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
Before, several years ago, how it would look is I would go to my parents' house, you know, we'd hang out for, let's say 5 hours.
Right.
We're not doing much, watching TV, chatting.
Quality time.
Back, you know, we're just chilling. Okay. Well, today how that looks is, hey, Kris is coming over for an hour. We got him for an hour. Let's be intentional about this time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we're going through, what he's going through, not about anybody else, not about, you know, anything else that's going on. Let's just stay focused and present in this moment. That 1 hour was far more impactful than the 5 hours times 10 ever was. And so so that was on me to lead that situation though. I
had to have a hard conversation about being intentional with your time.
And at first it was like not received well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's taken years to develop, actually. And I felt really bad at first, but I'm like, there has to be a better way or another way.
Right. And you get it's almost like a microcosm of like life as a whole, right? Like part of what makes life enjoyable is the fact that we know it's going to end. And it's like the more you can keep in mind that like our time is finite, the more you can squeeze out of what you have, right? So it's like if you know you've got somebody for an hour, it makes every discussion you decide to start or everything that you say that much more pointed, because you're like, I'm going to be more intentional with that little bit of time that I have. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't know that I have what it takes to implement something like that. So
Well,
I'm props
it's
to you.
process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, I will tell you too that in the beginning it was, hey, I'll be over for an hour and a half or two. And I may say for 2.5 hours. So
Right.
I kind of didn't stick to my word there.
Yeah.
But I'm learning.
But you're starting.
I went from
Yeah.
5 to 2. Okay. Or 2.5.
Yeah.
So then it became, okay, now I'm over there spending my 2 hours and all I hear about is everything except what's really going on.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to then start to implement I don't want to have that conversation. I don't care what they're doing. I want to know about you. How are you doing? What's
Right.
going on in your life? You know, to the point where now it's anytime someone else's name comes up, I'm like, I'm not doing this, Mom. She's like, oh, here you go again. And I'm like, if you like, this is important to me, you know? And then
Yeah.
now I'm going to make it existential. I need you to understand that I want a relationship with you while you're alive, while I'm alive, because we don't have much time here.
Yeah.
Let's use that time wisely together instead of being distracted and talking about everything but what's really going on. And that has added, and so think about it, like the time is so small, but it's powerful.
Right. You've
And so-
compacted it into,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so
and
that-
eliminated a lot of the excess.
that no one cares about anyway.
Yeah. It's just
You
kind
know?
of small talk.
It is.
Yeah.
And I'm not a small talk guy.
Right.
I want to talk deep stuff. I want to get to the real situation immediately.
Yeah.
And I want to help if I can, or
Go somewhere else and help there if you can.
yeah, well, and or just enjoy the moment, enjoy being around, and
Yeah.
you know, not make it more than what it should be.
Yeah.
Which I have problems with that.
Yeah, I think maybe not to that extreme, but I think I'm kind of the same way. And I when I am at my best, my life is very scheduled. It cuts down on so much of my anxiety, which I'm not really an anxious person, but everybody's kind of got their breaking point, right? Like you pile enough in a day and there's enough plates spinning, like even the most chill person is going to get a little like freaked out and a little anxious, like one of these spinning
Well,
plates
and
is
if you
gonna fall.
didn't, you'd kind of be alarmed too, right?
Right. If I didn't have
care.
anything going on, or if I didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it got to a point where it's like, I would be scheduling my family time because it's like, if I don't like block it off, even if it's just in my mental schedule, then like it doesn't happen. It gets filled up with all these other things. And kind of talked to my wife about that. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, she just didn't like the thought of being a block on the calendar. And I'm like trying to think of a way to tell her, it's like, I do it that way because it's important, not because of it's not important. Like I think in her mind, it's like, well, if you have to block us off on the calendar, then we're low on the totem pole. It's like, no, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, I've blocked you off on the calendar because you're extremely important. And so we got to a point where it's like, I block them off on the calendar. I just don't tell them that that's
Right.
how I do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
you just show up and like, hey,
you
I'm
don't
here.
have to say like, you've got me for till bedtime or whatever.
That's a very valid point, because I think there's something to be said about those that can relate to the things that you go through as a business owner, right? You're making your schedule. Like no one, as a 9 to 5, is
Right.
very clear for your wife to see like, oh, he's going to work until here, maybe
Right.
go a little over sometimes. Like, okay, but he's here. And then to understand that, well, now it's all on me to generate and create. So at some point, and I don't know how your mind works, but mine works in this way, is I want to create that freedom of time so that
Right.
I still block it off, but maybe it's 4 hours instead of 2.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's like you get so much freedom by owning your own business or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But with that freedom comes a lot of responsibility. And like
Mm-hmm.
what I've battled with is I want to give my wife everything and I want to give my children everything. What that means right now, especially since my 3 children are all very young, 4 and under, they just want my time. And so my struggle is I want to give them all of the time that I can, but also I'm in some of my like prime working years of my life. So I want to like, you just have to come up with your own balance. And it's been really difficult for me. How do I give them as much time as I can right now while making sure that I'm providing for them now and providing for them in the future? And it's hard. There's that. It's like it's a constantly tipping scale, and I'm just always trying to know which way it's tipping and like counteract it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then you look up and it's like you're in this whole playground that's just seesaws and you're trying to keep them all balanced. You know, it's like it's like this is the worst playground ever. It's just all seesaws. And I can't keep any of them balanced, you know?
Yeah. It's I don't have kids, so I don't know how to speak to that specifically. And from what I've learned for myself when I'm trying to balance things is that it will always be that way. Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Yeah. It's part of the fun.
Right? It's like...
And be grateful for it. Like you've said, it's like when I can find ways to just be grateful that like, it's not the universe conspiring against me. It's like, I get the opportunity to try and be good at these things.
Yeah.
As much as I let it wear me down sometimes, I would be distraught like without it.
Right.
You know?
If one of the things I was thinking about recently is a similar idea. Imagine that it was a practice, and that's a skill that you're building of the balancing act. And so that every day you have all of these situations, these are all repetitions in your practice. So to how you do anything is how you do everything. If the approach, so I think a lot about the mood that's brought to a situation has a large effect on what I would consider like the outcome to be.
Yeah.
And so if
you can tell when something's written by somebody that's like happy.
Yeah.
Or like you've done sales calls, a bunch of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like how much better do sales calls go when you're happy and excited?
Yeah. The energy dictates a lot of it.
Yeah.
And also like people feel that they may open up more. Mm-hmm. If you're really talking quietly and slow, they're like,
which is my go-to. It's a problem.
Really? Like, what's this guy do? You know, do I,
yeah.
I don't know. So, but I think that, I'm intending to take more of a practice approach of, gosh, everything in my life is just a practice that I'm improving a skill of communicating, of coordinating, of learning, you know, and not making it wrong or bad, but just it is what it is.
It's like reps at the gym. Yeah. It's like,
and yeah, it's like, too, I think the hardest part is in society today, the things that are pushed on us is that, you know, we want everything, we want it now, there's no patience involved. And to some degree in the entertainment space, you can be an overnight success. And most people aren't an overnight success, but
right.
How I was thinking about it is business ownership is about productivity. And I think that society has moved away from productivity and more into the entertainment space. With that comes an identity crisis for those creating productivity, because everything you're consuming is very entertaining and less productive. So
wow, yeah.
It's mind-blowing. Like,
yeah, I guess I had never really thought about it like that, but
throws me for a loop.
I think you're right. I completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, I think you shut down part of my brain with that. The productivity is what drives everything, but it's often not what is seen. And everybody wants
What's seen?
I realize the irony of that as
Yeah.
I'm saying this on like my podcast, but like everybody wants to be seen.
Sure.
And it's doing all of the stuff that's not on the camera. That's really what like pushes the needle forward. And it's oftentimes not what people care to see. I mean, if we filmed my life, like this is the exciting part.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's not me in Excel spreadsheets on my computer.
Yeah.
Right. Like I guess that's part of it too, is like as consumers, we want to see the exciting parts. I don't want to go see Elon Musk in front of a compuer on spreadsheets. I want to see him like
intriguing.
it would be. It would
well,
be
because
but
you are a
he's
spreadsheets guy.
But
too.
he's an outside. He's
an outlier.
An outlier.
Sure.
That's the word.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'd probably watch Elon do just about anything. I would definitely see him cage fight Mark Zuckerberg for sure. Like I'm buying that pay-per-view. We were just talking this morning, like there's no way that happens, right? This is a bit of a tangent, but like there's no way.
No, I think it's a ploy to generate, eyeballs and entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very playful. And
Right.
also, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, although he may be a little smaller, he's training
Right.
pretty frequently
In jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I was talking to Aaron this morning because I'm like, there's just no way, because like stocks will dip, right? Like the chances of Elon getting a traumatic brain injury are probably low. They're not zero.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
There's some risk.
and he is literally Tesla. He's
Yeah.
literally SpaceX. Like, you think those companies are successful without Elon? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. He has a very powerful vision. And I think that's one of his gifts, is his ability to communicate.
Yeah.
But I was reading, there's a book called The Founders where it talks about people's time at PayPal. A lot of it is employee recollections of those beginning moments when they were building PayPal. And I mean, all of them, and this I think is true for any company he's ever started, is he's right there with everyone, working more than them and casting the vision, and doing all these other things, and it's like, that man is an animal.
An absolute animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to that point, it's so interesting because he is doing very productive work, but oftentimes it goes unseen. You just see him giving a talk, right? And that in effect is his marketing. So that's how he's checking that marketing box for himself and his productivity.
Right. Yeah. He checks a lot of boxes with one 60-minute interview.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
It's very interesting. We call that a full move, where you take care of multiple concerns inside of one situation. And if you can, the idea is like, kind of like with managing commitments, is if you can have 4 commitments in one situation, easy. Like that's really good.
The higher leverage activity, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and granted, Elon's just a complete outlier, but like you're talking about a guy that can send out a tweet that takes 7 seconds that can literally like change
stock price,
market conditions.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like he has, through a lifetime of highly leveraged activities, has created a life and a system around him where now it's like any lever he can pull pretty easily can move mountains on the other side of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
It is. Like, I've been so fascinated with it. I actually I journal a lot.
Okay.
And one of the things, so I have like 13 journals.
I wish I had the discipline.
Man, I don't know what I've just felt. Okay, so here's how it started.
Okay.
And this was tying into Elon.
Yeah.
I wrote this thing when I was in college. It was like one of those like writing, I don't know, the Mead notebook things.
Yeah.
Okay.
The white and black.
Yeah. So I'm writing in one of those, composition book. I'm writing in that.
That's it.
And I titled that book Secrets to Success. I'm in college still, like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to document my secrets to success.
Yeah.
And so
before I've reached it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's part of the journey to document along the way.
Right. Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, well, I got to cast a vision first before. So I kind of went through all these facets and areas of my life. And one of them was to work with Elon to sell his company's insurance. And And that like
somebody's out there doing that and making some money.
Crazy, I'm sure.
How do you insure rockets? Like, I don't even know. Like
if it explodes, like, do you just fork up, $1 billion?
You're asking the wrong guy. Like, I don't think you just call up Travelers and be like, hey, I've got a $40 billion rocket.
I need rocket insurance.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who sells that?
I'm somebody out there does it.
I'm sure that it'll probably become a thing in the future as he progresses and you see the risk go down for them failing to launch.
Yeah, he'll probably own the insurance company. Like, why not?
Yeah,
like,
that'll just be an arm of the business.
Yeah, just an arm of the business that does like more revenue than Central Arkansas in a decade.
Oh my God. In like a couple months,
Right. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. So secrets to success and working with Elon and doing his insurance.
Yeah. I've always been fascinated by the things that he's creating, and just I think it's the conviction that he has that's so admirable to me. And the allocation of his time, because he's got 10 kids, I think.
Yeah, it's something wild.
I'm like, dude, when he making babies? Like,
I don't know.
It's interesting.
He's probably found some way to like outsource it. He's got some AI doing it for him. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's Elon. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, he's probably got some innovative, creative way.
I'm not sure I want to know.
Yeah, no. Oh, man. But
he's just like, we found a creative way to get around the typical restrictions of the human body. I've just got AI handling my procreation.
We have the next kid coming next month.
Yeah, right. I didn't even have to be there. It was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Don't make a short out of that, Aaron. AI procreation needs to just stay in the middle of this podcast. I don't even know where to go from AI procreation. I'm derailing my own thought. So that's how you started journaling, and you kept with it to this day. So is it still, are you just on like Secrets to Success 13 at this point? Like, is it?
I rebranded it.
Okay.
So the Secrets to Success didn't last very long. What I ended up doing was I created a persona for myself of who I wanted to be.
Okay.
And so the persona is an Olympian. The reason why an Olympian is because an Olympian is someone who they work tirelessly at this practice, and it's actually unpaid until you reach some sort of success, and then you have sponsorships and things come in after that. But an Olympian is someone who does it for the passion of the activity they're pursuing.
Yeah.
So I want to take on a persona of that, because regardless of the money or whatever else, I want to do something for the creative process and then the expression of me. And that's kind of been my journey, is finding that expression of myself. And it's been difficult, because when you want material things, and I need material things. I need finance, money to take care of my family. If I don't take care of that, I'm selling myself short. So I can't just be in a vacuum and think that I can't take care of the necessity. So anyway,
Olympians have to eat too, and have
exactly.
training facilities.
And a lot of times those
cars.
people train for 10 hours and then they go work.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a lot of them, even with medals, like, it's not like you get a gold medal and you retire.
Yeah.
Like, you
still got
doesn't pay the bills a lot of times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sports that aren't as glorious as others. You know? You go win a curling gold medal and it's amazing. And like, everybody, like, that's an incredible accomplishment, but like, you're back to work probably pretty shortly after.
I think so. It's like, and so then it comes in, okay, I'm doing this for the passion I have for curling.
Yeah.
And that is an expression of who that person is. And that's okay. And so I kind of took this approach. So then I titled it The Olympian of Life. So, okay, so this is my Olympian effort to my life.
I like that a lot.
And so this is how my journal, my entries are, whether it's a thought, whether it could be, notes from a coaching session or notes from a video I watched or my own vision for myself. Everything, nothing's off limits. This is life. This isn't so narrowly focused. This is all areas. So I got to recount experiences like when I was traveling for the software company, and then, oh my gosh, this is like having my own office in this guy's house I was renting. Like that was a vision that I had. So I have to acknowledge myself that I actually achieved what I said I wanted. And that's nothing to sweat at, or to miss.
Right.
I have to pay attention to that, because if I don't, and I just stay focused in where I'm falling short, which is oftentimes where I go.
Yeah.
I lose sight of everything I've created. So these journals help me keep track of, I remember, oh my God.
Yeah.
Or March, for the last 4 years that I've been journaling, I realize I have low energy in those months. I don't know why. So maybe I'll have a look at that now, and maybe we'll find something to address and take care of, because that's notoriously been a challenging time for me.
Yeah. You're keeping data like an Olympian would on your own performance. There's so much in there that I feel like I could unpack, because I really struggle with. It's another one of the seesaws in the playground where how do you celebrate your accomplishments, but also sit with your defeats, and also like you mentioned earlier, your ego is counterbalancing those. You want to celebrate your accomplishments without just letting your head balloon, right? And you want to sit with your losses, analyze them, figure out what could have been done better, come back stronger from them, but without letting it just
take you out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real problem.
I think in business ownership, I think that is something that goes untalked about, it just unnoticed.
Yeah.
What I've been learning, I study a business philosophy that they talk a lot about the ambition.
Does it have a name?
AJI. AJI. Yeah. Very incredible information.
And this is a business philosophy.
Mm-hmm. It's spoken as a business philosophy. However, you have to address your life ambition first before we can get to the business. So because your lifestyle is what drives how much money you need to afford that lifestyle.
Right.
And then it comes, okay, well, how much does that cost? Let's say it's $1 million. Okay. How are you going to earn that $1 million? Now we get into the business philosophy.
Okay.
But the lifestyle is what,
once you have a goal, you can then break it down kind of thing.
And so they have just an incredible amount of quality, high level knowledge and information about how to do that. And I was going somewhere with that about, celebrating successes and dealing with failures.
Right.
One of the things that when Cody and I were doing all these deals and stuff, I'm like, okay, this is incredible. We're making more money than we've ever made. I've never been able to have these freedoms in my life ever. Mm-hmm. I've always looked at the price on the menu and been very, afraid of spending too much.
Right.
Well, now I can go get a steak anytime I want, and that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it became, was okay, now I'm going to go celebrate, and I'm spending, several $100 just on, And so what I learned in that was, and also the philosophy they teach is, the celebration is in the story that you tell yourself. You could go to Whataburger, but it's the story that you're telling yourself of why you're going, what's rooted around it, how is it meaningful to you, and in that was wow, okay, so there has to be some merit given to celebrating successes, and it doesn't have to be elaborate like society props it up to be.
Right.
It could just be you having dinner with your family and speaking and having that engagement.
We're having this dinner because we're celebrating, and all of a sudden it's a celebration.
That's it.
Yeah, that's so true. I've found that whenever I would get like a payday, it was like a good payday, I would have this desire to just like treat myself to something, whether it be a steak or like a new pair of shoes or something. But I stumbled upon this by accident because I found it didn't matter the price of the thing that I got myself. It was just that I was like, I bought myself something and it scratched the itch because I found I would buy myself something expensive and then I wouldn't care about it 2 days later, you know, or I'd buy myself something cheap and I wouldn't care about it 2 days later, but it filled the need in the same way of like, oh, I celebrated that like payday because I got myself a whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so true. And that like, then it's just gone. But sometimes you're left with, you've overspent on something that's now meaningless.
Yeah. And
it's an important lesson. I hope that people learn, because some people don't learn that lesson. And you just, I mean, I think that's exactly what happens when athletes fresh out of college get a huge contract or whatever. Yeah. And all of a sudden you just enter in this huge celebration and you find yourself where now all the material goods that you bought are meaningless, if not just gone.
Yeah, value-wise.
And you're just left with, okay, like celebrating was fun, but like now I don't have, what am I celebrating now? And the value of things at different times of your life changes so drastically. You know, when I was 16, a 1990 Chevy two-door Tahoe was the most like meaningful thing in my life. I was 16 and that was my first car.
Wow.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, now, you know, it would probably hold a little less meaning to me if somebody came and
offered me
one. Yeah. Well, I would have the nostalgia of it, but
you'd
like
buy it for that cinema.
Right. But if it was, you get the point though. It's like compared to
changes.
Right. It just isn't as important. And I don't think you get that without like the perspective of time. And it's like, so you'll like where I'm going with this. It's like, so now I think about what are those lessons that I can teach myself today by extrapolating that out? Like, is there something I can learn about the value of time and money and the trappings, the physical goods that I can learn without living to 50? Because at 50, there's going to be some of that stuff that I'm like, golly, 30-year-old me was so stupid for buying whatever. It's like, can I just start applying some of that to myself now and not have that regret when I'm older?
Yeah. It's, I've, in my own ways, that's like a lot of where I'm at right now is understanding the consequences. While I may not feel them immediately for whatever purchase it may be. Yeah. Well, what about down the road? How's future Kris going to feel about that? And more importantly, how's your family? Like, does that affect how you take care of your family? Does that affect your ability to retire? Because we don't have a traditional means of retirement like a lot of like my parents, for example. Like they have a more traditional means than I do. I have to go create my retirement, which is why business ownership, part of the reason why it's so important to me is, well, I need capital at work. I need, recurring revenue to come in so that if for whatever reason, let's just say I have to retire early, I get injured or something and I physically can't work. Yeah. How am I going to take care of my family? And so to bring that back to like spending, is it worth going to get that, spend $400 at the steakhouse or go to Whataburger for $8.99 and enjoy the same narrative? Yeah. Different, and so that's been the lesson for me.
It's just another like seesaw on the playground of like, you got to live while you're alive. You got to like enjoy the finer things in life. Can I do it in a way that doesn't sacrifice my long-term success? All of my business now, like my biggest struggle is I've been so focused on like 50-year-old me that it just makes my like day-to-day now like pretty tight. Yeah. Like all of my rental properties, it's like those are all just with 50-year-old me in mind. Like, can I cover my debt on them right now? Like, that's the main thing.
Sure.
And does it spin off some extra money so I can like keep the lights on? But it's all, I mean, I had an opportunity in this crazy market the last couple of years where it's like, could have liquidated decent chunks of the portfolio or whatever. And I mean, there was a time where I was really struggling with that decision. It was like, do I liquidate everything and put more money in my bank account than I've ever even like thought about having? But then what was my issue? Because then I've killed the golden goose. The golden goose is dead. I got one big last golden egg out of it, but like the goose is dead. And now that egg, you know, do I just ration that out for the rest of my life? Do I retire at 30 and live off of a very rationed existence forever? Or do I sacrifice now, keep what I hope is the golden goose? It just lays little bitty eggs, but since it is single family real estate, I'm hoping that the historical trends stay intact and that they appreciate and that rent goes up and, you know, all of those things happen.
Yeah.
But I settled on, there's a reason like these hedge funds want to buy my portfolio, and that's because they know that the cash is trash and that they want these long-term equity holdings and whatever.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I'm happy with my decision, but there are days where the stuff is hitting the fan and I'm like, golly, I should have just sold the whole thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I should have just sold it all.
Yeah, I think at times, like I was just looking yesterday and making an assessment of what are the bottom 10% performers in the portfolio.
Yeah. Sell
So
them. Yeah.
maybe. Are you okay with losing, or are you okay with barely breaking even? Are you okay
Right.
with them being the bottom performer?
Yeah.
If so, that's okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Good to know. Or, you know, like we recently had a heating and air unit go out. Same weekend we had an electrical outage, so we had to replace a breaker. Right? And it's like, okay, so there goes my cash flow for the year on that property.
Right. Yeah.
Am I okay with that? Well, yeah, I think long term that value will appreciate for sure, and I think it's a good.
You're just echoing it in your head, like,
Yep.
It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it as I'm cutting a $5,000 check for a new.
Yep. And then
AC.
it's like, okay, but sometimes it may not be,
Yeah.
and that's okay too. And so if I wanted to sell a bottom tier part of the portfolio, I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think it's, what is it? The Pareto distribution or whatever.
80-20.
Like, yeah. The 80-20 rule.
Yep. It's in effect, man.
Yeah. It's hard for me because I think it is, it appears to be true to me. It's like, you know, the bottom 20% are, you know, cause 80% of your problems, and the top 20% are, it's so hard with the rental portfolio because it's not only the house, it's also the resident, and those are, they're living, moving, changing things. Even if you get 2-year leases on all your rental properties, the ecosystem within your own portfolio is, I mean, all those residents have lives and jobs change and family dynamics change and their needs for their lives change, and keeping a finger on the pulse, that's really hard. I mean, spreadsheets are great for it because you eliminate, it's like just the data,
Yeah.
right? But you never know. Like I get, even though I know logically, like keeping my emotions out of it is the right thing to do because they shouldn't be emotional decisions. But like at times it is weird. Like I find myself just being like, I worked hard to get those houses and like, I don't really want to sell them. Like, am I going to be able to buy that house ever again at the price I bought it for 3 years ago? And it's like, probably not. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't use that money on a different deal and it'd be better.
Right.
And then I just get stuck in these like thought loops. I get stuck in this like rabbit hole of like, I'm usually pretty decisive.
Yeah.
I'm usually like, okay, I've looked at enough information. Here's my clear decision, and like just plow forward with it. But like for some reason, when it comes to analyzing the portfolio and what to sell or keep, I just end up like keeping it.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm definitely holding on to some losers.
Oh yeah, me too. But I think that, you know, with the long-term vision in play, that makes that okay.
Yeah. Right. That's what I tell myself is like, if I hold it long enough, like,
if you're like, okay, I'm losing so much money per month, now it's threatening my cash position.
mm-hmm.
Now, you know, and I think there's merit to paying attention to projecting things like that, right? If something persists.
Which you have a finance and economics degree.
Mm-hmm.
I have recently messed around with financial modeling, and I very quickly realized why people get finance degrees.
Yeah.
Because it was this whole new rabbit hole of knowledge that I was like really excited about. I was like, wow, there's way more here than I would have ever thought. Cause like, dude, I'm an idiot. Like I'm just like doing the best I can, just try to do the next right thing. And I stumble upon these new pockets of knowledge, like financial modeling. And I try to watch all these YouTube videos, and it's always an Indian guy. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Everyone that I found is just like an Indian guy, and he's like an Excel wizard, right? And he's just like, yeah, you just do this, this, and this, and like here's your projections. And then here I am 12 hours later, my eyes just melting out of my face, just trying to figure out how to like kind of recreate what they're doing. But these financial modeling tools, now that I've kind of got some of them set up, I'm like, dude, I should have really gotten a degree and saved myself like a decade of my life by just being taught some of this basic business stuff that's really, really helpful. Or maybe I need to go find a mastermind like it sounds like you have, because it sounds like some of those have been really helpful as well. Yeah. I'm so bad at asking for help. I'm so bad at taking the time away from working in my business to work on my business, right? I'm just terrible at it. I just get so caught up in the things of today need handling today.
Right.
And I'm not great at, well, how do I do the work today to make sure I'm not having these same problems 6 months from now?
Yeah.
You know,
it's like the distinction between urgent and important.
Yeah.
Urgent's the day-to-day. Important is working on the business. And
right.
I think one of the things that I think you do very well is you stumble into things.
Yeah.
I think that curiosity, the drive to be curious, to find out, is a skill that regardless of any education that you have, that is the one thing that will set people apart. So for example, I know I have a couple of friends that have degrees in entrepreneurship. Are they an entrepreneur?
That's a thing?
Yeah.
I didn't even see. I'm an idiot. I didn't even know you could do that.
Well, they're not entrepreneurs.
It'd probably scare you right out of like doing it. There's
maybe
because like knowledge, the knowledge can, you're so aware of all the risks that it makes you like not take them.
Yeah. I think there's some merit to that.
Yeah.
Because like, it's so funny to me. I never thought until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, up until that point, I was like, I don't think owning a business is even a good thing, you know? But it's the stumble upon things. And that's exactly how Cody and I worked through real estate. It was just like, we're just stumbling on networks. We're stumbling on deals,
new ways to get other people's money. And yeah.
And that right there is also like a skill that I believe should be practiced. And I think that you're really good at that. And I think you should give yourself a little more credit with regard to how you stumble around. Because it's kind of a funny, like stumbling, but
it's literally how it is. Yeah.
But that's like, isn't that so interesting that that's how we get to the insights to take our business to the next level?
Yeah.
And level up is just by stumbling upon it.
It's so true. I hadn't thought about it that way, but like my entire 20s was a very exploratory process. And I mean, it's continued into my 30s because I am wired to, once I plateau in whatever way, not necessarily financially, it's usually knowledge wise. Like any job that I've had, once I find that like the learning curve has flattened out, I'm not growing, I'm not learning, like I just find myself miserable. And so I think that for me is like a blessing and a curse, right? It keeps me from having a lot of stability. It works out because my wife's not that way. She's extremely stable across like every facet. Like she is much more like the stable person. I'm the one that like everybody gets worried if I do go to like a conference or something, because I come back and I'm like, we've been doing everything wrong.
Changing everything.
Like I've got this new thing. It's going to be amazing. And I mean, thankfully the people that have been around me long enough, the track record's been decent enough, and I don't rewrite business plans frequently. But I mean, we do have new ideas, and it's another seesaw, right? It's like you want to be innovating enough where you're like open to new ideas and trying new things that could help you, your family, your business, your community, all of that stuff. But not so open that you're just chasing every shiny thing.
Right.
And that's, that discernment is something that it's gotten better with time. Like I can dive down the rabbit hole of like trying to learn, what's that other thing? Like if you spend, it's like 2,000 hours on something, you're better than 99% of the world in like that thing. It's like there's so many of those financial modeling. I can go dive down that rabbit hole. It's not rerouting the trajectory of my life or my business or any of the people that work here, like putting their jobs at risk. It's a rabbit hole I can jump down and all of a sudden figure out that it can drastically improve what we're doing if I can like figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's why I tell people too that want to get into real estate. I'm sure you're in the same boat. People will be like, Kris, I want to get into real estate, especially the last handful of years. And I will recommend to them low risk foundational educational steps. Like if you can find something that's low risk, educational, foundational, like do that. It's like,
I love that.
Like here's some hurdles to jump over. That's something a mentor taught me. Like read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. 95% of the people, that's a made up statistic, will never come back to you and be like, all right, read the book. Now what?
Yeah.
But the 5% that do, you're like, all right, I might have something with this person. They might be worth the investment of the time and energy. Right. And then you can help them figure out ways to get into whatever business it is. Like, let's say it's real estate. Because I used to just think the only way into real estate was being a commission-based real estate agent. I knew from prior history that commission-based sales were not for me. And so I was like, well, real estate must not be for me, because I think the only way you can get into it is by either having a career like you're a doctor that spends off a lot of extra money and you invest in real estate, or you're an agent and you help doctors find real estate, right? Yeah. And then found a way to get into project management. And like once you're in it and you're around it, or like y'all went to the RIA and then like you find other people's money and like you find a way to get into it, and then all of a sudden you just learn that there's this whole ecosystem that supports this huge multi-billion-dollar like industry, and there's so many ways to get involved, and there's all types of different personality fits, and like I truly believe there is a way for anybody that wants to get into real estate to get into it, but you have to find your entry point, find that low risk educational foundational place, and then just let the scales fall from your eyes and see everything going on, and you'll find some strategy that works for you no matter what your position is in life. There's just, but you can't do that for everyone. Right. Is what I try to like get everybody to know. It's part of why we do this podcast. It's like, hopefully this is somewhere people can go and hear stories like yours and say, oh, well, that's how like Kris got started. And they bought 5 houses in 5 months. They went to, you tried the Robert Kiyosaki way, and like then you found some deals this way, and like you've stumbled through it. You find ways that worked really well and like ways that didn't work well, and through that process, you're left with like a successful business and like a portfolio and all of these connections and ways to, you could go do real estate 40 different ways.
Right.
But you have to go through that process to get the knowledge, and you can't just dump that onto somebody. Somebody wants to use you as a shortcut. They're like, Kris, I want to get into real estate. And you're like, I don't know where to start with you. Like, I hear your words saying you want to. I need your actions to start. Where are the actions? What have you been doing? I'm more than happy to help anybody, and it's a bit of a problem. I want to help everybody. And I used to just take those words at face value. GT, I want to get into real estate. Dude, I got you. You're my buddy. We've been buddies forever. Like, call this guy, he'll get you set up here or whatever. You're just trying to like help. Yeah. And then you just find yourself like, oh, I cared about it more than you did.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, it's
right.
Like, I took your words as you meant them and you didn't,
Yeah. I try to, when people approach me around that, where I immediately go is why? What are you doing this for? Are you doing this because you saw a YouTube video about it? Or are you doing this because you want to take care of your family and you want to buy 5 houses a year for the next 20 years?
Yeah.
Now that's a different plan. And I can help guide you in that direction. And I had someone recently that I was talking with that I used to work at ABC with. He does a lot of digital marketing, and he's like, man, I had a rental property like 20 years ago, and I'm really itching to, jump back in. And I'm like, well, what are you doing to produce that? And he's like, well, nothing. I'm like, okay, well, there's your first problem. It's like, now you can work through that to take action, but just understand that, before you get a deal, you got to market for the deal. So how do you intend to market? There's so many ways to do that. Yeah. What's your time like? Okay, well, you have very limited time. Perfect. So have someone else go look for you. Sounds like a real estate agent. There's plenty of them, it's like.
More than enough.
Yeah, and it's just like working the X's and O's, but for him, he didn't have that knowledge, right? Yeah. And so I think that most people, they need knowledge, but oftentimes they don't know what they need. And so they can approach it as like a fish out of water.
Right. Well, and a lot of times the knowledge isn't the barrier. Like a lot of times people need that kind of like handheld coaching. It's like
accountability.
Well, it's like, dude, I know how to get in shape. Like I know it's calories, how do you lose weight? It's like you burn more calories than you take in. Right. It's like we all know, like there's no shortage of information out there on how to get in shape. And I got away from saying this has been helpful for me. I used to say things like, well, I just don't have time to go to the gym. And what I say now is I just don't prioritize going to the gym. Because that's the truth of it is like, dude, I could be in shape. I could try and look like you if I would prioritize it, but I don't. Right. Like I said earlier, it's like I prioritize like that time at the gym would have to come out of time with my wife or time with my kids or time that I'm sleeping or time that I'm working on my business. And for me right now, like it just is like slid down the totem pole. And so now I just try to not be completely out of shape. Because I can do that without going to the gym every day. Like I can, and I could be in better shape. I just
you can watch what you eat. Maybe eat less processed foods. Processed foods oftentimes cause people to get out of shape. But I see what I speculate is that at some point the gym may surface up to be one of your top priorities, and that's okay.
I used to love working out, and I hope that I will get into it again. I just don't prioritize it right now. So like your friend from ABC is like, he wants to get back into real estate. And like, we fall in this trap of, I want to own rental properties and I see all the benefits of it and whatever. But I don't have time. It's like, well, you do. if you want it bad enough.
Exactly.
Something else may have to sacrifice. You may have to get more efficient at whatever. But like, I like asking people why, and it's also just what it seems like the next follow-up is like, okay, well, what are you willing to give up to do it?
Ooh.
Because
Yeah.
it's like something, you have to give up something.
Their time is always completely maxed, whether they're
Right.
watching 5 hours of TV, but their time's being spent somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point is people have to remove something they're currently doing to create space for new things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading this book, a really good book, 10X is Easier Than 2X
Ooh.
by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan.
Okay.
Extremely good book. But one of the things that Dan Sullivan talks about is he has days where he doesn't have anything scheduled. And the purpose of that is he's creating space for new opportunity in a way that if he's so busy with running business and doing his thing, he misses out on a potential opportunity. So he's always cultivating and creating space for that, which is like, that's probably one of my biggest takeaways from the book is because I don't do that, right?
Yeah.
I try to stay as booked up as possible.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I do too. And I think some of that staying as booked up as possible is, I think when I think about myself, it's a way to cope with the anxiety of like, am I doing enough? Like the lack of that, structure that you have when you're working in a company. I feel some of that fear or anxiety that I have that I'm not accomplishing enough. I'm not doing enough today. If I've filled up my day, then it's like it's tricked my brain into like, I've done enough today.
Yep. Accepting that, okay.
Right.
We're okay.
Yeah. We fill up everything, right? Like if you have a house, it's always geared towards getting full of stuff, right? Like any space that you have likes to get filled with stuff. Any time that you have available likes to get filled with appointments. I think you don't have a minimalist living space without a lot of intentionality.
Right.
I think it's probably the same with your calendar. It's like it takes a lot of intentionality to keep it clear. I mean, especially if that guy, I've heard his name before and he wrote this book, so I'm sure he's got a ton going on.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't have that free time in his calendar without being very intentional about it.
So to your point, Dan Sullivan, he partnered with Ben Hardy to co-author the book because Ben's an excellent writer. Dan doesn't have the time. So Dan, and he talks about it, if you get the audio version, at the end of each chapter, so Benjamin Hardy reads it, and then Dan Sullivan, they have at the end of each chapter just a casual conversation about it. And it's super cool because Dan talks through that writing a book is not what he's good at.
Right.
He's good at talking and bringing up ideas and things that he's executed, et cetera. And he has someone write those books for him. And so his partnership with Ben Hardy has been serving him in a way of he can get the word out for what he does and, you know, the value that he has to give to the world. And that's a goal of his, is to write multiple books. I think he said 100 books.
My goodness.
And he writes a lot of small books. But anyway, he's published, I think, 3 or 4 with Ben Hardy. And anyway, they're really good books. But that was their latest one that just came out. So,
I mean, it's common. You talk about Elon or any one of these business outliers, right? Like one of their skills that always impresses me is their ability to recruit great talent, and it's usually complementary skill sets to themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got the visionary leader, but a visionary leader that isn't good at also like communicating that vision, finding the right talent around them. It's kind of that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right?
Yeah.
Like the ones that end up being these real outliers with these huge companies, have a way of finding that talent that complements themselves. And I'll tie this back into myself. Part of the scary part of going on this, leaving my salary job and going on this entrepreneurial journey on my own is I'm a really good number two. Like I'm just a really good, like what you would call like an intrapreneur. Like I don't think I'm that great at the like visionary leadership, setting the goals, the KPIs and all of that. I'm really good at like following that and like hitting. And I don't know why that is, but it was a fear of mine because I'm like, I know I'm a really good number two. I don't think I'm a very good number one.
Yeah.
And so like I've been kind of like dealing with that. But when it made me think of that when you're talking about Dan Sullivan being like great at one thing, not so great at the other.
Yeah.
But like combined, they find a way to put out a ton of books and whatever. I need to talk to Coach K about about some of my issues.
There's a gentleman. So I'm a part of the real estate mastermind called Collective Genius.
Okay. Is that the one I've seen? Like you go and you give speeches and
Yes.
You get the belt. Is that the one with the belt?
Yep.
Nice.
So
I should have brought the belt.
Yeah. So I'll share in a sec. The point that you made about being an excellent number two. There's a gentleman in Phoenix. I can't remember Phil Green. Phil Green, San Diego. There's someone else. He's a guy in Phoenix. All he wants to do is run appointments. He runs all the appointments in the East Valley for his company. He has a CEO that he hired to do the vision, COO, CFO, etc., down to him as an acquisitions guy.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is go on appointments and help people. And that's his role. And he loves it. And he's been doing it. And they crank out, I don't know what their number is, but it's over 10 million a year.
Yeah.
And so like to that point is like, if you do feel that you're an excellent number two, perhaps it may be good to find someone who you could put in that seat to cast the vision or to help develop the vision that you can act on.
Yeah. Undoubtedly it would be a good thing for me to do.
Yeah. And I think, and what's interesting, I've found this out more recently than in the past, but people nowadays want to be a part of a community and a culture more than they want the pay that comes with it. They want that fulfillment. And so, you don't have to go hire a $6 or even more than $100,000 a year person. That, it could be someone who wants more experience and has that CEO type vision.
Yeah.
But so
they're hard to find.
They are, but that's also good because you don't want someone that's just laying around, twiddling their thumbs.
Right. I was having that conversation with another guy that was on the podcast. He was like, we were talking about, he was like, I just got to find, he wanted another version of himself. And it's like, well, like that's part of leadership, right? You can't expect yourself out of others. And I was like, well, your biggest issue there is like, even if you found, let's say it was a clone of yourself, would they work for you?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, this guy is a killer, super ambitious, like great dude. And is just like, he's one of those guys, like you, where it's like they have a mission, a vision of how to accomplish it, and they're doing it. And like, you can come along or you can get out of the way kind of thing. It's no love lost, but like we're on mission, right? And so that was kind of my conversation with him. It's like, if you found you, would he work for you? And it's like, dude, probably not, because he's probably got he's going
to be on his own journey.
He's got his mission and vision, and he's on it. Like, he's probably out there.
Yeah.
You just don't even know he's out there because he's busy on his thing.
Yeah.
That's just part of it.
Man, it's so true too. And I think that's a big testament to leadership too, is when you do find people, is how do you inspire them, speak the future to them so that they see that I'm a part of something bigger than myself, and that I get
Yeah.
I get a chance to contribute every day to that, that I work.
Yeah.
But so Collective Genius,
Collective Genius. Yep.
and shout out to Collective Genius,
Yeah.
incredible community.
And this is real estate only, or it's like
real estate specific.
Okay.
The story of how we even got introduced to them was Cody and I went to a Joe Fairless conference. He's a multifamily guy.
Yeah.
So we went to that conference to meet people and just learn more about the space, because we at the time were looking to maybe transition into something like that, or even put money with
bigger
syndicates.
deals. Yeah. We all want to get to big multifamily deals.
Yeah. And so we went. So we go there, and we were like, okay, the event's about to end. We had told ourselves, hey, let's take a couple days after the event to digest what we went through. Let's go somewhere else. So we were in Denver at the time. We landed on going to Scottsdale, Arizona.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, let's go to Scottsdale. So we go to Scottsdale, and we're like climbing Camelback and doing all this and that. And Cody's like, hey, I'm going to go to this real estate conference. And I was like, all right. So he went. I was doing something else. He goes to the conference and meets this guy. And this guy, they start chatting it up or whatever. And then in passing, in an email, he says, hey, are you guys in this mastermind, Collective Genius? Cody's like, we're not part of any mastermind. And so Cody mentioned that to me, or I think I was CC'd in the email. I was just like curious, stumbling my way through.
Yeah.
What's Collective Genius? Found it, reached out to them and said, hey, here's who we are. Here's what we do. We would love to have a conversation about what you guys have to offer.
Yeah.
Because this gentleman spoke very highly of it, even though he wasn't even in it. And so we have a conversation with them, and we're like, holy cow, there's like tremendous value here.
Yeah.
Join the mastermind. And so the mastermind meets 3 times a year. There's 3 days to the event. The first day is you're learning from the experts in the space.
Okay.
A lot of the guys doing like 400 to 1,000 deals a year. Yeah. Okay. So like, wow, they have some insight. They can see trends and patterns really quick.
Right.
So they're sharing
and how to build mine goes to like building the systems and the processes to handle it all.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they speak the first day, and they give a lot of value. The second day is all the members get to share what I would say is, what's your marginal utility? Like, what's the value that your business has that has you produce what you've been able to produce?
Mm-hmm.
And what can you share with others that they could then take home to implement in their business?
Right.
So there's like 180 people there in this space, all over the country, and some even in other countries.
Yeah.
So you go into like, let's say 5 rooms on a Tuesday, and there's 40 people in each room, or whatever the math comes out to.
Yeah.
So you got all these people, and so in your specific room, everyone gives presentations. It's a full day event. There's so many presentations. And then at the end, you vote on whose presentation was the most helpful. And so whoever wins that tally, they get crowned to, quote unquote, the hot seat champ.
Okay.
And so there's a whole ceremony, so to speak, afterwards, where everyone goes into this big main room, and then all the heads of the rooms, like the 5 rooms, they come out and say, hey, so-and-so gave this presentation. They kind of recap some good value that was given.
Yeah.
And then they introduce the top person, like who got the most votes.
Right.
And so that's how you win the hot seat presentation, is by having the most helpful presentation.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of what they talk about is taking your ego out of it and just being there to give.
Yeah.
And they speak
because that's how you're helpful, is by giving.
Yep. And they say you get more when you give more. So drill that in and take that with you. So we won. We gave a presentation
whole belt and everything. I saw
whole belt.
Yeah.
We gave a presentation on Coach K, and also how that was instrumental in our business growth.
Right.
Over time, like understanding our metrics in marketing, like what's our cash conversion cycle? How long does a lead take to convert? What are those trends for all the different marketing channels? When do I need to adjust, or when do I need to case study something? How do I analyze and assess myself in the business and see where we can be better to move forward?
Right. Yeah. Because all those things, it's like, those sound like great things to do. how? Yeah,
Yeah.
like how do you discern? Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you
So-
get a coach.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of ways you can do that outside of having a coach, but she is certainly instrumental in exposing that knowledge.
Right.
Because before I'm just willy-nilly stumbling my way through,
Yeah,
you know.
like me.
Yeah, well, I think it's great,
It's
you know, because
it's got its pros and cons, but
it
like
does.
yeah,
Now you're doing podcasts and you have like you get to talk with people and learn.
Right.
You know, it's like that's a stumble, and that's
it
a
is
very
still
valuable
stumbling.
one, right?
Yeah,
And so I think there's a lot of
yeah.
value there.
I need to get her number.
Yeah, I'm happy to make an introduction.
She's probably too busy for me, but that's okay.
Oh no, she'd be fine. The last thing with the mastermind is on the third day is what they call chill day,
Okay.
and this is the day where you've just spent 2 days learning. You need to
Intense, yeah.
Intense. You need to take your top 1 to 3 things, and you need to connect with the person that gave that presentation, or actually work on that implementation.
Yeah.
Or they put activities together so that you can network with the guys, get to know the guys or girls. So like every morning playing pickleball. They
Yeah.
also do pickup basketball. So
Nice.
there's always like 40 people on each, going out to play.
Yeah. Basketball is more my speed than pickleball.
Yeah.
not
I'm a
very good at
pickleball guy.
I'm a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Together, we can conquer this
Oh, yeah.
day 3.
Yeah. Day 3 is golf.
Okay, not good at golf.
Or you can go chill by the pool.
That sounds good.
And that's where, it's like for the entire day, you're just chilling, talking with everyone, you're
Yeah.
hanging out by the pool. It's in, the locations are in Florida. So
Always?
Yep.
3 times a year, just
times a
in the same
Nope.
area of Florida, just all over Florida.
Tampa, Clearwater, or Sarasota, I think.
Okay.
They fluctuate. I don't know why they make the decision. I just show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I show up ready to learn.
It sounds awesome, man. Yeah, and I just remember seeing like on Facebook, y'all like raising this belt up and me being like, I don't know what Kris and Cody did, but they got a belt. Like it looks awesome. Like
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, it was really surreal because we didn't think that we won. I thought there were some great presentations. There's a guy who had won
Yeah.
the belt 2 times before,
Oh wow.
and he gave us this really sick presentation. And I'm like, that's gonna be hard to beat. Like his storytelling ability was like very captivating. It's very like enrolling,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude, he got me. Like, I kind of want to
You
vote
just
for him.
outvalued him, man.
Yeah.
Like presentation may have been better, but the value wasn't there.
Exactly. So
Hey, win by any means necessary.
exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think we've got to wrap it up. But
Cool.
okay, real quickly, just because this is a question I wanted to ask you. If you could go back in time
Okay.
and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? Not to put you on the spot.
That's okay. It's good. Having conviction in your vision will only serve you in your life for your fulfillment.
Having conviction in your vision will only serve you in life for your fulfillment. Yeah.
'Cause what I recently heard something that from a gentleman who's made billions, Mark Andreessen, I think is his name. He said something like, Lex Friedman asked him, you've made all this money. How does money correlate with happiness? And he said, well, I'd like to change the phrasing of that to, instead of happiness, it's about satisfaction. Satisfaction comes from the fulfillment of a purpose. And I feel that, a lot of the time I've spent learning, a lot of that has just been how to trust myself and my vision without making it wrong or bad. And having conviction and belief in that this is who I am and that's okay. There may be a lot of people that don't like it. There may be a lot of people that do like it.
Yeah.
You may piss the people that like you off because of your vision, but that's you and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so that would be like just a calling card message to myself.
Man. Yeah. That's incredible because it's such a mature perspective. I think that doesn't come without just a lot of like working on yourself,
Yeah.
becoming, I feel like I'm probably still not to the level you are, but so much of that my 20s, especially just that exploratory process, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, what my vision even is, like what I want my career to be, and then becoming okay with like, it just seemed like everybody had their map laid out for them. Everyone was like in college with their specific degree, and that led to their specific job. And like, they all just seemed, and I know this isn't true, but they all just seemed to have that confidence of like, yep, like here's my path and I'm going down it. And I was always just like, I don't like, mine's just not that clear.
Yeah.
It's been getting more and more clear as I learn more and more about how I am and how I want to be and who I want to be. But figuring out some of that, like that I can create that and I can be that. And like you said, like not assigning good or bad titles to it. Just being like, this is who I am and how I am, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's tough. If I could give that advice to myself, I think I would probably do that as well.
Well, I think
would I take it? I don't know, but I'd.
Oh
give it.
yeah, that's a whole nother story. But I think it's good. It's like it simplifies the decision-making process. Is this who I am or want to be, or is this not? Either way is okay. Let's just make a decision.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Rick Rubin. This is the last thing. You know Rick Rubin?
The name sounds super familiar.
He's like behind the scenes producer of like a ton of hit records.
Okay.
So he just helps people discover themselves.
Yeah.
But he does that by his own conviction and who he is and who he's not, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and how he can help draw that out of other people. And he talks a lot about the process of understanding who you are is kind of like tasting food dishes. So you got food dishes, and you got two dishes in front of you. Mm-hmm. One of them, let's say you like it. The other one you don't like. But it's understanding and making the distinction that, okay, I don't like this. I don't like it because it could probably use a little more salt. But also this is apples and oranges. Like this is steak, that's chicken and rice. They're just different. And that's okay. One of them is not me. One of them is me. And let's go with the chicken and rice today.
Right.
Perfect. Okay.
And one of them's not necessarily bad or good. Yeah. It's a personal.
That's just who you are and who you're
not.
Yeah. And then, okay, you like chicken and rice? Well, let's add broccoli to it. Is that okay? I don't really like broccoli. Let's do green beans. Perfect. Okay. So now we're just, and it's like he has a way of making it so simple. And I'm like,
right.
Cut through all the crap and get right down to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
some people are better at it than others.
Yeah.
Dude, this has been awesome. We may have to do it again sometime just because I feel like there's so much. But hopefully this was helpful to people. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the Hustle on Purpose podcast. Go check out Kris. I didn't even get into like what you're up to these days. How do people find you?
Instagram, Kris Kohlstedt, Facebook, same thing. Any social medias.
Yeah, I got so into the psychology and the coaching and all that cool stuff that you talked about that I completely forgot about like what you're up to now. But we'll have to get it next time.
Sure.
So,
no problem.
Thank you guys for watching, listening. Hope you found it helpful. Share it with somebody else that may find it helpful as well. This has been the Hustle on Purpose podcast. See you next time, and hustle on purpose.